Some European NATO leaders have called for the deployment of a dedicated military force to Ukraine, emphasizing the need to reinforce the nation's defense and deter further aggression in the region. European Union and United Kingdom leaders made these remarks following high-level talks in Berlin with American and Ukrainian delegations, where security cooperation and aid commitments were the primary focus. Germany, France, the United Kingdom, and 8 other European nations came together to sign what is being called the Berlin Agreement, marking a significant step toward a unified regional defense effort. Under this agreement, Europe's newly announced Multinational Force Ukraine will serve to strengthen the capabilities of the Ukrainian armed forces and provide direct logistical and strategic support on the ground. Troops from nations that form part of the US-backed coalition of the willing are expected to make up the core of this peacekeeping force, representing a broad and determined alliance committed to defending Ukraine's sovereignty. The joint statement read, and I quote, "This would include commitments to a European-led multinational force Ukraine, made up of contributions from willing nations within the framework of the coalition of the willing and supported by the US. It will assist in the regeneration of Ukraine's forces in securing Ukraine's skies, and in supporting safer seas, including through operating inside Ukraine." Unquote. The United Kingdom and France have long been strong advocates for sending European troops to Ukraine, particularly in the period following any ceasefire deal, arguing that such a move would solidify peace and deter renewed hostilities. However, significant uncertainty still remains over which specific nations are genuinely prepared to contribute their forces, revealing divisions within Europe about how far to extend military involvement. Earlier in the negotiations, both Italy and Poland openly rejected calls to deploy some of their troops to Ukraine, citing domestic political sensitivities and concerns about escalating the conflict further. The European Union has also proposed the creation of a US-led ceasefire monitoring mechanism, designed to prevent any future violations and to ensure that all parties adhere to the terms of peace. Alongside these measures, European leaders have demanded robust security guarantees for Kyiv, insisting that such assurances are essential for bringing the ongoing war to a definitive and lasting end. In addition, the EU signatories of the Berlin Agreement are pushing for legally binding commitments to assist Ukraine not just with troops, but also through the sharing of intelligence and advanced military support.
What the U.S. has put on the table here in Berlin in terms of legal and material guarantees is truly remarkable. This is a very important advancement that I greatly welcome. My second point is that an agreement has been reached that a ceasefire should be secured by substantial legal and material security guarantees from the U.S. and the Europeans. This is a truly far-reaching substantial agreement that we have not had before, namely that both the Europeans and the Americans are jointly willing to provide security guarantees similar to Article 5 of the NATO Treaty for Ukraine. President Zelensky referred to this. In my view, this is really significant progress. And the American side is also politically and in perspective legally committed to doing this, as mentioned. I want to say at this point that we will not repeat the mistakes of Minsk at this point. Instead, there must now be a securing of a ceasefire through appropriate security guarantees to Ukraine. What this specifically means in detail will certainly need to be discussed among those who will individually provide these security guarantees. But I have said that the U.S. and the Europeans, and it is clear that these will be comprehensive security guarantees for Ukraine, which we will agree upon together and also define in detail.
However, U.S. President Donald Trump has reportedly set out a series of conditions for Ukraine in return for providing long-term American security guarantees and future defense support. According to reports, Trump's proposal includes a demand that Ukraine surrender parts of the eastern Donbas region to Russia, framing it as a necessary compromise to bring the conflict to an end. Speaking on Monday, the American president stated that, in his view, Ukraine has already lost the territory, suggesting that Washington's expectations for a full Ukrainian recovery may have shifted. Trump also confirmed that he recently held a conversation with Russian President Vladimir Putin, though he declined to share any concrete details about what was discussed or agreed upon during the call.
Question about Ukraine. Now that the meetings in Berlin have wrapped up with Zelensky, is there a timetable for going to Moscow? Is a delegation going?
Well, I think that the delegation is largely there right now, actually. They're in Europe, and they met with those people that I called out before, the various countries, plus some others. They want to see it end, Katie. They want to see it end. They all. I want to see it end. They want to see it end. I actually think that President Putin wants to see it end. I've had good talks. We've had good talks with Russia, and I think they'd like to get back to a more normal way of life.
Mr. President, follow up there. An Article 5-like deal seems to be emerging without NATO membership for Ukraine. If such a security guarantee is offered, what incentive is there for Ukraine to give up any sort of territory?
Well, look, you have, they've already lost the territory, to be honest. I mean, the territory is lost. But in terms of security guarantee, we're working with Europe on it.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HD videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.
करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HD videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.